Hello there. My name is Jasom Jensai, and welcome to stream number 21. Um, Again, with some more Star Wars content, we've got how good is Han Solo, or not Han Solo, how good is Solo, the movie, not the character, review of that movie. I decided to, instead of going from episode 3 to episode 4, to do Solo and Rogue One in between there. The next segment is how powerful is the Force, and this is uh, kind of like what is its Force potential, what are the limits and costs when using the Force, and all that kind of stuff. I'll explain more when I get into that segment. The third segment is going to be what is the best land vehicle, so walkers, hover tanks, wheeled vehicles, everything in Star Wars that travels along the ground, and this is specifically for combat. Uh, and the before we get into all that though, the question of the stream is, and by the way, this is worth 10 points, is what planet did Kira grow up on? So no looking it up. Um, what are the other stuff? Only the first person who gets it right gets the points, and you only get one guess. Question, pretty basic question. What planet did Kira grow up on? I assume it's the one she was born on. Should be pretty easy for most of you. So leave your, guess or the answer in the chat or in the comments. I suppose I'm not uploading this part, so just leave it in the chat and you'll get 10 points, and I'll mark that down in my Google Doc. But with that, I think it's time to start the first segment. So overall, my thoughts on Solo are very positive, but at the same time, it's like not really a movie we needed. And this is kind of a common criticism of it, is like, oh, the who asked for a Han Solo, and a lot of I feel like this criticism is kind of dumb because it's not about who asks for it; it's about whether there's a story there. And for example, this is a story I really want to see. Is like I don't really want to see it in like a TV show or a movie. I think that might be a bit overkill, but I do want to see the story of Dexter Jetster from episode 2, the guy who is like the cook from the restaurant who met with Obi-Wan. Like he's got an interesting backstory. He what do you call it? He is friends with the Jedi, like close friends with a Jedi, and the Jedi goes to him for advice about a toxic dart. Um that has a lot of implications in it about his backstory and what he could have done in the past. So to me, that story is super interesting, but yet who would ask for a Dexter Jetster story? So it's not really about who asked for it. It's about, was the story needed? And in Solo's case, I don't really think it was. There's a lot of cool moments in this movie. There's a lot of awesome action scenes and cool stuff. And it does set up a lot of awesome stuff, potential for like sequels and TV series spinning off. But I feel like this movie wasn't one we particularly needed. I do like it a lot more than most people, I think. There's just a ton of cool stuff in it. The music, first I want to point out the music is really good. I say that pretty much all the time, but that's because pretty much all Star Wars music is just super good. Like John Williams, of course, all 9 movies. He just did the original 9 movies. I'm pretty sure. He did a great job with that. But also, I think it's Michael Giacchino or something. I don't know how to pronounce it, or even if that's the right name. But whoever did Rogue One also did a good job. That score is pretty nice. Things that I like about that one are like, it's so hard to remember the names because they don't. I don't know. The score is good. Then there's obviously Solo. I like that one. I like John Powell and most of the things he does. How to Train Your Dragon is awesome. Specifically talking about the score, although the movie itself is good. But yeah, John Powell is always good. Then you have Kevin Kiner with the Clone Wars and Rebels, and that's also really good. I mean, that one is like, I haven't listened to it as much because there's just so much of it. It's like a 4-season TV show with 20 episodes, 20 minutes each, and then there's a 7-season TV show with similar lengths. The last 2 seasons, I suppose, are not 20 episodes, but even with that, it's just so much music to go along with that. So I don't really know that much about the music. It could be possible that I'm just picking and choosing the best out of that, but I think it's probably good. And then there's The Mandalorian, which obviously has also awesome music. It's a very different style from the other Star Wars composers, but it's also very, I don't know, it's just exciting, and it gets the tone across very well, and it's unique as well. So the music in All Stars is good, but Solo is no exception, and I do want to point that out, or at least point out that that's my opinion, because I think it's important to recognize when someone does a great job. Other things I like about Solo, um, I mean, it's just a fun movie all around. There is I'm going to go through characters. That's how I'm going to organize this. So, Han Solo, as a character, specifically in this movie, I think is really good. They wrote him very well, in my opinion, as he thinks he's like this, like coward. He's always trying new things, and trying to make the best out of his situation. He loves flying. He like I don't know, seeing him play sabacc. It seems in line with his character, but at the same time, you see that he's a good person, and even though he doesn't see that, Kira sees that and is able to point that out in him. And I think that's like a good way to foreshadow, I guess, the story that has already been told. That happens in the future, but it already happened. Yeah, you know what I mean. It just fits in line with his character, especially his future choices. That he is this good person. Um, then there's Lando, and everyone loves Lando in this movie. I think they did him well. I mean, he's Lando. Uh, he's got a very unique character, and they just put that character, brought him back in time, stuck him in here, and gave him even greater obsession with capes. Um, that's pretty much all. Then there's L3. L3, I don't mind L3. Some of the jokes don't land super well for me, but some of them do. And I think it's an interesting concept that she brings up with like droid rights, but I feel like putting it in a movie and joking about it probably isn't the best way to do it. Um, I think that works better in like a TV show or a book, where you have just more time to flesh out the concept. Um, yeah, I don't know. I do like it, but it's just a movie. There's not really quite enough time to flesh out that entire concept, and it is a really big concept. Then there's Chewbacca. I mean, Chewbacca's always Chewbacca. Like, the thing about Chewbacca is, or I should say, the words I would use to describe Chewbacca are like loyal, dependable, um, consistent. Like, he doesn't. Chewbacca is almost always done right because doing him right is just him being consistently there for people. I also love that they made Chewbacca super old, which I'm pretty sure they did that in Legends. Um, but like in canon, it just makes sense. Wookiees live longer; they can do more stuff. Um, Another character is uh, what's Kira. Kira, like Han's early girlfriend or whatever it was, and I thought that was an interesting character. Um, like just someone who is willing to sacrifice, and fight for herself, basically. She's very cunning and capable. She moves up from being I forget what they call it, some street rat person on Corellia. So I think like the White Worms or something. Um, Whatever. She's basically just a nobody on Corellia, and she eventually rises to become, um, like a top lieutenant to a high-ish leader in Crimson Dawn. I mean, we don't really know the command structure of Crimson Dawn, but I would assume that I'm already forgetting his name. I watched it last night. What's the guy's name? I'm going to look it up because I'm probably going to be referring to him later in the episode, and I don't want to constantly be saying that one guy. How to look him up. Okay, so that guy, you probably know who I'm talking about. The bad guy, Dryden Voss, that's his name. Dryden Voss, we don't know how high he is in the organization, but he seems to be pretty high up. I mean, he has direct line to Darth Maul. Darth Maul even knows who Kira is, so that just kind of shows how high up she is, or at least how influential she is. Speaking of Dryden Voss, I thought he's another great character. I love like his menacing, I guess, professional, just the way he acts. Is very like it's cool to see like this cool mob boss who's like totally relaxed, and he like portrays himself as this kind person, but there's some pretty obvious underlying meaning, and I don't know, threats he's making to the people who fail him. So it's just cool to see Dryden Voss, just the way he talks, and his scars are kind of terrifying. Like it's not like I'm sitting there looking at my phone screen going, "Ah, he's got crazy scars." It's like, well, if I'm that character, I'm going to be terrified of this guy because he's got crazy scars. Um, Also, his blades are interesting. Uh, I don't know. They're just a cool weapon, I guess. Um, the shape is not something I would choose, but for his station, I would say knives wouldn't be too bad of a choice. Um, then there's Beckett, and Beckett is another character. He's a character I really like. I love that they mentioned him killing Ara Singh. That's, I don't know. It's just a cool piece of trivia that you can pull from the from the movie. And maybe I should have made that the question. That's a decent question. Maybe when I run out of questions again. Uh, Anyways, yeah, Beckett is just a cool character. He's nice. I love his like how he sees the world as like everyone's like him and no one can be trusted, and it's just such an interesting worldview to see in a character. Another cool thing about him is just again like Dryden Voss, it's his attitude. He's got this like roguish smuggler, like flipping blaster type person, which makes sense. Then there's his crew, that like four-armed guy, the four-armed monkey dude. That guy, I really like him. I don't know, he just seems so genuine and kind, and like he has a lot of passion, I guess. And also like he's got a lot of experience, and having a lot of experience is, I don't know, it's just something I admire in a character like him. Then there is Val or Hal or something, Beckett's girlfriend basically, and I don't know. We didn't get too much from her. We got that she was kind of a little bit more cautious and worried, less trusting, I guess, than Beckett. Even though Beckett doesn't trust anyone, he's still like hires Han and Chewie, even though he doesn't know them. But whereas Val would basically say, "Yeah, I'm not even gonna hire you because I don't know you." Beckett still doesn't trust them, but he's gonna let them prove themselves to him. So that I don't know, cool character. Didn't get much from her though. It'd be interesting to see these characters, um, in another time, seeing Beckett and Val and I always forget the pilot's name, the four-armed pilot guy. It'd be interesting to see them. Who are some other characters? Um, oh, Enfys Nest. Enfys Nest is interesting. In quick theory time, Enfys Nest seems kind of young, and she does reference that her mother was Enfys Nest, and then she died, and Enfys Nest, the current Enfys Nest, took her place. And it's a theory. I don't know where I heard this. I didn't come up with it, but I heard it somewhere that Enfys Nest died when on the Snow Mountain planet with the train, when the coaxium container blew up, and Han like pulled away, but the Enfys Nest and her like speeder bike people, they didn't survive. And then the new Enfys Nest would be that girl who's, when she said, "Oh, if my mother had survived and still wore the Enfys Nest thing or whatever, then like maybe I don't remember." She referenced like how she got it is her mother had it before her. And then the theory is that her mother died like just a little bit earlier. Like, I mean, we don't really know if it's been a day, an hour, or whatever, but it could be. I mean, I'm assuming it's not a year or a month, but it could be that long. We really don't know. But yeah, I don't. It's an interesting theory. I believe it, but it's like I wouldn't be upset if like some Disney person or some new piece of content was like, yeah, that's not true. This Enfys Nest has been dead for years. Um, but I don't know. Quick theory. It's nice. As for the, what are they called? Are they just called Enfys Nest or whatever? Um, Whatever Marauder group Enfys Nest is from. I think it's cool that they support the resistance, and you see that Han is like offered a place in the resistance, and he like just doesn't doesn't get into it. Um, and also that there are people starting this rebellion, and Han is inadvertently helping them, even though he's like still never seen them before. Um, so that's most of the characters I've gone through. As for the plot, there is one problem I have with the plot, and that's pretty much that basically everything important that Han Solo references, or at least it kind of seems that way, like the Kessel Run, winning the Millennium Falcon, all that seems to happen in like this one movie. I mean, sure, it's not too much of a coincidence that a lot happens in a row. Um, Especially when you consider we don't know the time difference between when he won the Millennium Falcon and what do you call it? And the end of the previous end of the movie, like what the scene before. We don't know how long that is. So I guess it's not too much of a thing. But that's I don't know. It just seems like they jammed a lot into it this movie. But other than that, it's just a cool plot. I mean, it's a smuggler film. It's nothing like galaxy wide threat. Um, it's not like the Rise of Skywalker. Basically, it's not on that scale, so it doesn't need to be super important. The it's just not like a special plot. I guess I would say it's a good movie, but not like a great movie. And specifically in terms of plot, and I would say that overall that's true of the movie. Um, so for the setting, the worlds we see, the new speeders we see, um, the outfits we see, I guess, that's all really cool. I love seeing the Pikes in live action. I love seeing at least a little bit Terrascasi. Um, that was cool. I loved seeing all the capes. Corellia, that was, I don't know, Corellia felt a little bit too much like Earth. I mean, you had a speeder that seemed like a car. You had Earth-like climate. I don't know, maybe a bit too much like Earth, but they did a good job in making it still feel like Star Wars. Um, Now I know you're all thinking, what place on Earth did he grow up in? That like Corellia seems pretty dirty, and by similar to Earth, I don't mean I grew up in like a place that looked exactly like Corellia. I mean it's like seems like somewhere on Earth I could be like, oh, that looks like it's on Earth. Um, so, anyways, I don't know. Corellia was cool. The snow planet with the train, that was, I mean, nothing super cool. It's a pretty standard mountainy planet with a train, but it's cool. Then there's what is it? Kessel. Kessel was cool. As I said, I like seeing the Pikes. That was pretty cool. I love seeing stuff getting brought over from animation into live action. Not as much as some other people. It's not like it's like this big thing when something gets brought over from animated to live action, but it's just cool to see that the people at Lucasfilm are paying attention and not like wasting cool characters just being like, yeah, well, we didn't know about them, even though it makes sense for them to be in this spot. We're not going to put them in there. It just makes the universe feel disconnected. At the same time, though, you don't want to make it feel like it's too small, which is another criticism. But I feel like Solo does this pretty well. In most of Star Wars, honestly, they keep a pretty tight grip. Um, there are some times where I'm like, how is there this many types of aliens in this one spot that we've never seen before in any others? But most of the time, it's pretty good. Um, but another the next planet they go to, is that one planet where they refine the coaxium. Another kind of boring planet, to be honest. I mean, they're all good planets, but like none of them are super interesting. It's not like they're going to Mustafar or, I guess Hoth is kind of that way too. It's a ball of ice. Um, I think Hoth and Tatooine when they originally came out are like, sure they're cool because you've never seen it before, but now we've seen snow planets and desert planets all over the place. They're not that interesting. And city planets too. Like I don't mean cities like Coruscant. That planet is always special, I guess. Very interesting. But planets like Corellia, where it's just kind of Earth-like, and there's cities in most places. Kind of like a not quite Earth like. It's like a Earth 1,000 years from now when we've got like factories everywhere. Um, then again, who knows what Earth 1,000 years now will be like. Um, but that's like one potential. Um, yeah, all the planets are in this movie are just kind of normal, but that's totally fine. You don't need like a special planet in every movie. I mean, it's cool to see stuff like Scarif, like Mustafar. What about Attack of the Clones has? I mean, Geonosis. The planet itself isn't that interesting, but the Geonosians are pretty cool. Camino is pretty cool, a water planet. Not super interesting, but again, the Caminos themselves are very interesting. The Clone Wars. Then in episode 1, you have planets like, where do they go? They go Naboo, Tatooine, Coruscant. I suppose that's the first introduction of Coruscant. Coruscant's awesome. Um, what are the sequels? You've got Exegol. Exegol is weird, I guess. I mean, it like the ecosystem doesn't really make sense, but it looks cool and it establishes the right tone. So I like Exegol. Then there's The Last Jedi has Crate. Crate is a super cool planet in my opinion. Um, like everyone makes fun of the scene where the guy's like, "It's salt." They're like, "Oh yeah, just in case you thought it was snow, it's not Hoth." But like, honestly, those speeders going across and raising that red dust, that's just awesome. I like it. Then there is episode 7. Um, not well, Starkiller Base is interesting. Um, but it's not really the planet. It's the fact that they built a super weapon out of it. Um, so, in quick theory, Starkiller Base could be Ilum. You've probably heard that one a million times. It's a pretty sound theory, so people mention it a lot. So I thought I'd just mention it there. Um, yeah, and then in the originals, obviously they're making new planets all the time. Like it's all new, so they kind of get a free pass. um, yeah. So the planets in this movie aren't too special, but they're pretty good. Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the movie itself. But then there's also the possibilities it opens up, um, especially with. Uh, I don't know if I would want to see like Solo 2 or something, but I'd be interested in seeing like um, Kira and Maul like in the Crimson Dawn, more of that organization, and actually seeing how Maul goes from leader of Crimson Dawn to like stranded person on Malachor. That's an interesting story that I want to see eventually. And I don't know if they're going to tell that anytime soon, and they really don't need to. That's something that can be fleshed out any times in the next, I don't know, like 50 years as far as I'm concerned. I want to see it, but it's not like I'm fine seeing it whenever, basically. So when someone comes up with a good story, when they have that story fleshed out and they know exactly what they want to tell, and it's just this awesome story that needs to be told, I want to see it. But like if it's like, we need to figure out a way to do this. Let's do it right now. I don't know if they need to do that. Then there's like a Lando show, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the things announced. Whenever they announced all the shows, it was like a Lando show, and that could be interesting. I mean, there like Solo, there doesn't seem to be too much of a story there to tell. You'd just be telling his life story, but I mean, it's Lando. It's going to be an interesting life story, same as Han, or Han as he calls Han, or calls Han, not Kells, which I thought was a super cool thing where Lando's like calling him Han to kind of try and get on his nerves while playing Sabak, and it's just something he does from now on. Oh, two scenes I want to mention that I don't really like. And honestly, it's so easy to be negative. If I don't mention something, it means I thought it was either fine, good, or great. So when I say, yeah, there's two scenes I didn't really like, I mean it shows you this is a pretty good movie. Like I've been saying, it's not like it's a great movie or most of it. I would say it's a good movie. But just having only two bad scenes, it's not a bad movie by any means. So the one is how Han Solo gets his name, and basically, just to refresh your memory, he's standing in line. He's enlisting in the Imperial TIE fighter, whatever it is. He wants to go into the Navy, and The guy's like, well, what's your name? And he's like, Han. And he's like, well, what's your last name? Who's your like people? Who is like tribe or whatever it is? And he's like, well, I don't have any. And so the Imperial officer is like, well, I'll call you Han Solo because you're alone. Like he doesn't say because you're alone, but I'm just explaining the reason. I guess you probably know the reason. Why am I explaining this? But anyways, uh, he's like Han Solo, and Han just accepts it. I mean, Han Solo is a great name. I love how he doesn't have his name before, and he has to come up with one, and he gets a one. But I don't like that the Imperial officer gave it to him. A revision I would make if I were to like read the script beforehand, or just straight out make changes to the movie with like a I don't know magic movie changer, blah blah blah. The movie changer, 3,000,002, because obviously that's how many they make. Um, anyways, instead of that, I would have the officer be like, um, well, I'll call you Han, and then generic name like, the obvious one is Han Doe, as in like John Doe, not Hondo like the pirate, like Han space last name is Doe. Um, but I feel like Han. First of all, Hondo just doesn't sound right for Han Solo because Hondo is already the pirate Hondo Inaka. Good pirate by the way. But the other problem is Doe is like a Earth thing. It's like not. It doesn't sound like Star Wars. And even on Earth, there's probably other cultures that I'm just not a part of that have a different, I don't know, generic name. So maybe they call him like, well, I'll call you Han Larson or something. I don't know, some Corellian type generic name. And Han Solo's like, you don't no, call me Han Solo. That I think would be a better scene because it shows more of Han's personality. Um, and I don't know. I feel like leave your thoughts about that change in the comments or yeah in the comments or the chat, um, whatever it is. Um, and leave any revisions you would make. I mean, for some of you, I'm sure it's a lot because some people didn't like this movie. But any like minor changes or maybe specifically to the scene, really anything you want, really. I mean, it's um, not much I can do to stop you from commenting, and even if I could, I probably wouldn't. Um, but yeah, so any revisions you would make, feel free to leave those in the comments, especially concerning this scene. Another scene I don't really like is when he confronts what's her name? I forgot the name. It's like the weird fish thing that he confronts at the beginning. Um, the like the crime boss person that's like in the water, and he like takes this rock and he's like, "It's a thermal detonator now," and like no one believes him. Um, because he makes a clicking sound with his mouth. It's a bit awkward because it doesn't really sound like a thermal detonator. You can tell he's going, um, but I do like that he throws it out the window and it shines the light on and burns the person. That's cool. Um, but I don't know the clicking. I just feel like it just wasn't a good plan. I mean, maybe maybe it lands with some people. Because I mean, if you're winging it all the time, if you just go with whatever pops into your head at the moment, which seems to be how Han Solo does things, especially in this movie when he's younger. Maybe not every plan should be very good. Maybe you should do some awful thing like that once in a while. Um, but I mean, it didn't really land for me. It seemed a bit like quite a bit out there to me. Um, I don't know. Everything else in this movie, I just like it. I love seeing them come up with their plans. Um, specifically like the plan to go to Kessel, with Dryden Voss casually and politely threatening to kill them. Then there's Beckett who's like trying to get out of it through like uh, integrity, honesty, and sincerity. Uh, Kira trying to not get Han killed, but also trying to not get herself killed or get put out of the organization. and Han just coming up with ideas and Chewie being Chewie. Um, that's a cool scene. I love it. I like seeing all their characters. Seeing Han and Lando play Sabak, that's also cool. Um, I don't know. I just feel like they did a really good job with giving these characters a like a feeling where you would recognize them based on their personality. They did a good job at keeping the old characters, giving or by old I mean characters we've seen before, giving them their personality that they had before, and kind of translating that to what a younger version would be like. But also giving all the new characters a personality of their own. One last thing that I just thought of that I want to mention that I didn't like, and I get why they did this, is Darth Maul, like, he stands up and he, like, ignites his lightsabers, and that's to show the audience, yeah, this is Darth Maul. It's not like some weird blue hologram guy. But I feel like that's a bit unnecessary. I mean, sure, maybe the casual fan wouldn't know who Darth Maul is, but the casual fan, like, wouldn't really care that much. For everyone else, like, the casual fan is just gonna be confused when they see Darth Maul come back. For for the people who know who Darth Maul is, they're probably gonna know he came back in the Clone Wars, and they're gonna get super excited because they know what he did in the Clone Wars, and like it's exciting. To the casual fan, it doesn't really matter that much, so you don't really need to like activate lightsabers. Which the biggest problem with it is it doesn't make sense for him to do that unless there was like some guy walked in and he needed to kill him, but like that didn't seem to be the case. It looked like he just ignited it to look cool or something, and that comes across as awkward, at least to me. If I mean, if you, it's not too much of a problem. Most of these things are like minor tweaks or just not interesting of a story. But yeah, anyways, so my overall thoughts on this are, it has a lot of fun scenes. It's got a lot of, it's a movie that makes me smile. But in the end, it's just not really um, like that interesting of a plot. The characters are cool, but they're not like my favorite types of characters. I prefer Jedi personally, although I know a big part of Star Wars is like the scoundrels and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's just not a super interesting movie to me, but I did really enjoy it, even though it's not the most interesting idea. So with that, I think it's time for me to move on to my next segment, and that is, how powerful is the Force? And side note to this is, why don't the Jedi use it more? So how powerful is the Force? So I have a piece of paper with a long list of points I want to talk about. First one is like all the different powers and how you can do all this stuff. And then there's like what are the limitations and the costs. And then there's also one last aspect that you might not think about how the Force can be used. So first, let's start with the powers of the Force. Like telekinesis is a big one. You can push, you can pull, you can lift, you can throw, you can choke, you can trip people, you can freeze them in place, you can trap them, which would be, yeah, you just catch them when they're not looking because you're not in the same spot. Like you can reach them from far away. So that alone is an extremely powerful ability. Then you've got lightning to diminish. You've got force augmentation, which is force jump, force strength, force speed, force endurance, force maybe durability. I don't know. Leave your thoughts on this in the comments. Uh, one, do Jedi have more durability? And two, do you think Jedi before the like during the Clone Wars had access to force healing, or at least some version of it? You know, on second thought, okay, you can still leave your thoughts about the second one in the comments, but the second one I think is a no. In fact, like it would be used a lot more if it was. And that's just like the physical powers. Then there's also all the mental powers, like you can detect things, you have heightened reflexes, so you can see things a little bit before they happen and dodge accordingly. You've got mind tricks, you've got like so much stuff. For some reason, I have Death Star written down. I'm not sure why I have that. But another, like this could be used in anti-assassination, like if you have good reflexes and like detection skills, who's going to be able to assassinate you or whoever you're guarding. You can deflect blaster fire. That really just shows. Oh, I remember why I had Death Star written down. This is to show how powerful the Jedi reflexes are. Deflecting blaster fire is a very common move done by Jedi. Shows that it's a pretty basic Force ability. Shows that deflecting blaster fire is easy through the Force. Like that. Okay, maybe not easy, but like blaster fire is moving really fast. If you ever tried like blocking a Nerf foot with like a toy lightsaber or something, I mean it's not perfect, but deflecting blaster fire would be kind of similar to that, and you get shot most of the time when you do that, or at least I did when I was a kid. I should probably try again and see if I can do a little bit better. But then there's also the Death Star where Luke shot his proton torpedoes into the exhaust port. That takes extreme reflexes. Like a computer missed, and he didn't. It's pretty intense. And then the other awesome application of these mental powers is sneaking around. Like if you can sense someone around the corner, then you can like hide basically. It's a lot easier to sneak around if you can see your whoever's potentially looking for you before they can see you. So that's super important for sneaking around. Force users would be really good assassins, and they'd also be really good at defending against assassins. Ugh. My voice is getting tired. Next, I want to cover all the limitations and costs. So, in a magic system, which the Force is like a magic system, generally you have like costs and limitations. And I've always wondered if George Lucas like wrote out exactly how the Force works, or if he just kind of basically just had a general understanding and decided when and what not it could do. Basically, how hard and soft of a magic system is it to him? I mean, to us, it seems, I would say it's pretty soft, I guess. And basically, if you don't know what a hard and soft magic system is a hard magic system is one with like clearly defined rules. Examples of this are, I haven't seen this one, but this is a common example. Is what's it called? I know the story. It's like two kids, like their mother dies, and through magic alchemy, they like try and bring her back, and it doesn't work or whatever. Is like Full Metal Alchemist is the one. Full Metal Alchemist. Then there is like a soft magic system, which is like Lord of the Rings. Like, what can Gandalf do? I don't know. He's just kind of a wizard. He doesn't have clear defined powers. Yeah, so that's a hard and soft magic system, and obviously it depends on what you consider hard and what you consider soft, but I would say the Force to us is more of a softer magic system. It could be seen as harder, but like we don't really know all the rules and limitations to it. But here's basically all the stuff I have that I think have been said about it and stuff. So the first thing to consider is in episode 5, Yoda says that size matters not, and he's talking only about telekinesis at this point, but it could also apply to other Force abilities, and I'll touch on that a bit later. But if size doesn't matter, then why can't Jedi like throw planets around? Why can't they like move stars out of orbit? And then Yoda, of course, explains only in your mind it matters. So does this mean that if a Jedi believed hard enough, they could like smash people around with a sun? Like they could just throw it around at the speed of light? Like, I mean, obviously not the speed of light, but like 99.99999% at the speed of light. Like, could a Jedi theoretically do that if they believed hard enough? I don't know. That's a very interesting question, and I'd love to ask like George Lucas this, or maybe even Dave Filoni. I don't know if he would know. He probably would. And again, it goes back to this idea of, do the creators even know what the rules are? Like, because I mean, they don't really have to. It's still a good story. The magic system doesn't have to be a perfect science. I personally, I would prefer it to be. I like hard magic systems. I like knowing, I guess, or I don't know. I like the idea that there is a plan. But it's not really necessary to tell a good story. Like Lord of the Rings, obviously. and I'm sure what Tolkien uh, like had a knows how the magic works, but I mean to the reader, we don't really know how it works, or at least I don't. I mean, maybe some, maybe there's some like comics or something or extended universe that explains it a bit better. Um, but from what I know, it's a pretty soft magic system. Um, yeah. So does size really matter? And clearly, size matters in your mind at the very least. So like, it's pretty believable for a Jedi. Oh, I can force pick up that water bottle there, like that water bottle that I have right next to me. You might have one, might not. I can force pick up that water bottle right there, but it's not quite so believable. Yeah, I'm just gonna pull that moon down onto my enemies. They're kind of being mean, so I'm just gonna drop a moon on them. Like that seems a lot less believable. And that would explain the reason why Jedi don't just move things around like crazy. Um, Another thing to consider is, does distance like matter? And again, talking about specifically telekinesis, um, if I'm like right next to this water bottle, can I lift it up easier? Uh, Rather than if I'm like, I don't know, like across a football field and I see the water bottle over there, can I like force pull it to me as easily as force pulling it to me from here where it's right next to me? And then extrapolating that out, does that mean you could potentially force choke someone from across the galaxy and it's just as easy as doing it right there? Um, oh, one thing I do want to mention, going back to size matters not in the belief thing, is gestures. Are gestures required for the Force? Obviously, they're not. We see Darth Vader choke people. We see Darth Vader throw objects at Luke, and all with no like direct gestures. I mean, he's not like gesturing to the object and Force throwing it like with his hand. I don't have a camera, so you can't really see. Um, but like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not like throwing his hand across his body and the object follows the line of his arm in the air. But they're still flying towards Luke. And in the choking scene, it's even more obvious. He's just sitting there and the guy's choking out. And he's not lifting his hand. So gestures don't matter, but what I think, or at least what I've always believed, is that gestures help with the believability and therefore how much you can lift. If you're like gesturing, then you're like miming the action. You're like getting into the mindset of actually lifting something. Then you're gonna believe that you can lift an object much better. So that's how always how I've seen gestures. Then there's um, distance, and I lost my train of thought, but however I thought of gestures. Oh, that's what it was. I thought of Darth Vader choking Admiral Ozzel from super far away, and he isn't using gestures in that scene, which obviously led me to the tangent that gestures don't matter. But going back to distance, does distance matter? Again, I think it's due to like belief, at least somewhat. I mean, it might matter a little bit, but I think it's mostly just how much do you believe you can affect this object with the force. Um, so when you have like a hologram of someone, it's probably a lot easier to visualize choking them, especially when they start choking. Then you can really visualize it, and you can really start to finish them off. But I don't know. That's just something. It's so interesting to think what like what would it actually be like to use the force, and what are the limitations it has. Um, so I don't think distance matters the same way that size matters. I do think that distance matters less, um, but not as much. One thing I do want to mention here, and it isn't really a spoiler, but it is in the Light of the Jedi High Republic book, um, which yeah, I think it's a decent book. I mean, it does have some flaws, and I'm planning to do a review of that next week, and perhaps maybe some other High Republic stuff. I don't think so though. I believe that book is not going to be there in time for me to finish it, but I have finished the High Republic. Um, I considered doing it for this week, but at the time I was planning, I hadn't finished it. But I will say I do like the book. Um, if you're interested in the Star Wars, especially more in like um, the Jedi and how the Force works, maybe not so much how the Force works as much as how people see the Force, then you should definitely pick up this book through Audible, the library, however you pick up your books. Um, just pick it up, read it. It's a good book, decent book, at least in my opinion. Uh, one thing I'll get into that next week. But one thing that does happen in this book, and it's not too much of a spoiler, is a bunch of Jedi are like, um, trying to move this thing from like it's in space, and they're trying to move it, or they need to use the Force to move it. And this one Jedi goes down to this planet, and it's like a crop planet, like it's agricultural. There's not like just a ton of like farmland, and she goes down, and she was musing about how you would think that you would want to go over to the thing in space and move that, like get closer to it, but distance doesn't really matter. Um, and what really matters is like your connection to the Force. And here, there's a lot of connection to the Force because there's so much like plants and agricultural. It's just plants. It's a lot of food that they're growing, and it's all around you, and you can feel the Force really flowing here. And I do think distance matters. Like I don't know, maybe I think that, and therefore it is that. But to this Jedi, um, I don't remember the exact quote. I don't think she said like it doesn't matter, but I think she said it was less important, or it doesn't really matter. And maybe she just didn't have time to get there, and so is rationalizing. Again, I don't remember the direct quote, but it just kind of made me think of this idea: does distance really matter? And I personally don't think it really does. Um, and I think it's due to, and I think it, instead of being, is it possible? I think it's possible if you believe, and that paints a whole new light into, um, like the do or do not. There is no try. Like might not that might not entirely try in real life. How can you do something without trying? Like sure, there's the concept like don't just like be like yeah, I'll try, like actually intend to succeed. And but like at the same time, you don't want to just have no contingency plans. It's really not that good of advice. But if you're a Jedi and the Force works how I've been discussing, then do or do not, there is no try is like the best advice possible. Because if you have doubt, then you're not going to be as strong. If you have no doubt, then anything is possible. And maybe not anything. There are other limitations, such as, well, can the Force really, like, I don't know, conjure up a random Death Star plant or something? Um, can it, like, teleport object? Well, I suppose it can't. can it, like, create stuff out of nothing? Can it, show you, like, a clear image of, like, something from another universe that you've never seen before? Like, there are things it can't do. But when it comes to like lifting things, shooting lightning, potentially some other powers that I'm gonna, I'll discuss that now. Or maybe I'll do that in another video. Because it's kind of hard to come up with the topic, so I'm gonna save some. So look forward to a video about. I don't know what exactly it'll be about, but it'll be somewhat about. At least, very least, I'll touch on this is either how does the Force work, and like what are like the various powers that it has, and how I classify them, and then through that classification, what powers are like similar and would logically extend from how these powers would obviously work. And I've covered this in an old video. I believe it's like my third video on the channel or something. But I think I can do a lot better job now, especially with terminology. But anyways, on to this video. Um, the in the High Republic, the Jedi is talking about like how all the plants on the agricultural planet around them are like their life, and the Force flows through them and all this stuff, and it gives them power. And that also got me thinking about the next section of this section, which is limitations and costs. The second part: do emotions change power, and do nearby living things affect power? So, first one I want to touch on is living things. So Yoda, I believe his words are, dang it, I don't remember the words. Basically, he says that the Force is generated by all living things, or is that what Obi-Wan says? The point is that the Force is generated by all living things, and you know it's like everywhere. It's in all living things. It's in metachlorians, and you can call upon it. And like, sure, you can like affect non-living things, but it's generated through non-living things, I guess, or through living things. And that's supported in the High Republic when this Jedi is like, well, you would think I would want to get close, but really, I want to be close to all this life so I can draw power from it. And that made me think, do like, is a Jedi stronger if they have a lot of like life around them? Like, is a Jedi in a crowd stronger than a Jedi in a desert? Even, like, if it's the same Jedi, same training, um, are they stronger near other living things? And there's actually a film theory by the channel Film Theorists. They cover way more than just Star Wars. Like they don't cover Star Wars that often. But they actually made a video about Force ghosts, and the conclusion they came to is that Force ghosts can't appear in places like with very little life, or at the very least they don't have a strong connection. Um, but and that's a good theory, but I don't know. I would love to like I don't know, spend like however long it would take to watch all the Star Wars stuff and like truly dig into this idea that Jedi are more powerful with living things around them and see how supported it is by actual stuff. So leave your thoughts in the comments or in the chat about this idea that life brings power in the Force. And another thing I want to touch on is emotions. And this is something that I argue with people a lot with. Maybe argue is the wrong word. Discuss. I suppose it is argument. I'll be honest. It could be seen as either, really, depending on how you want to view the person you're talking with. And by talking, I mean typing, because I do most of my Star Wars discussion online through YouTube comments, through it's just online stuff. But one thing, the Jedi getting stronger with emotions is something that I've often like I don't know, seemed like it's people like see the dark side as this amp to your powers and like it's more powerful even though Yoda says it's not. And I would there is some proof that the dark side enhances powers. You see like Obi-Wan seemed to get a boost from it. He fights a bit faster, a bit harder. But at the same time, he gets taken out by Darth Maul anyways. Darth Maul just force pushes him. So in a sense, the dark side weakened him. Then later in the Clone Wars, he does the same thing, and Darth Maul exploits that even more obviously this time. He even says, "I exploited your anger. I riled you up, and then punished you for it." And by punish, I don't mean like he punished him because of it. I mean like he used that as a distraction and was able to exploit that and use it against him. So he even says that in the Clone Wars. It's the first time they encounter each other in the Clone Wars when Obi-Wan is saved by Asajj Ventress. Then there's like the Skywalkers, and Luke beats Darth Vader through anger, or at least when he's angry. You see Anakin. I don't know. It just seems people fight more intensely when they're angry, or when they're filled with the dark side emotions. And this, I think that people see this as like, oh, the Force is stronger with the dark side, but really, I don't think it's that. I think it's just that when you are filled with emotions like anger, and hate, and even emotions like determination and compassion, which I would say are light side emotions, light side feelings. I get well, yeah, it's emotions, kind of, but those even those emotions too. It's not so much that the Force is stronger. It's just that you're more focused and I don't know. You just have this determination that you're not gonna lose because you're angry, um, because there's people at risk, because you're determined to get this done, and like this, it impacts your fighting, and like it frankly just makes you more focused. Um, so I feel like the Force doesn't get stronger with emotions, but you yourself get more focused. Um, another limitation and cost of the Force is, and these are kind of the obvious ones. It's like fatigue, distractions, force walls and cloaks, and training. So on the screen, I'm sure, and in the thumbnail, you can see why don't the Jedi use the Force more? And a lot of this is Force cloaks and Force walls. Um, to to be clear, when I say Force cloaks, what I'm referring to is like cloaking your signature in the Force, I guess, so that people don't sense you. The biggest example of this and the most obvious is Darth Sidious. Like, he's sitting around with the Jedi all the time, and they don't even know that he is the most powerful Sith Lord, like, that we know of in canon. Um, like, they can't even sense it. That's an example of a Force cloak. And although I don't think it's ever been like mentioned or like explained that they're hiding their Force signature or anything. It's implied in that the Jedi can't sense him, that he's using some sort of power to block it. Then there's, again, very similarly, Force Balls. I don't think it's ever been mentioned, but Force Balls have to be there, because otherwise Jedi would just be like Force choking each other. Maybe not Force choking. Sith would be Force choking everyone all the time. They'd be like hitting each other with their lightsabers, because, I mean, as you can see, or as you, I mean, I would assume, maybe you disagree with this, but to me, at least, it seems pretty clear that Jedi using telekinesis are stronger than Jedi just pushing stuff or whatever. So, like, a Jedi could theoretically just turn a lightsaber and attack someone with it or control them, but that doesn't work if they have Force balls, which, I don't know, it just seems like something that has to be there. And then the last one is, or I don't know if I mentioned these, fatigue, distractions, and training. Fatigue and training, actually, I do want to talk about fatigue a bit more, but training, obviously, I suppose another one I should have written down is talent. I think talent and training, it's hard to tell what comes from what. You could say, like, oh, this guy has so much talent, but maybe he just had good training. Or you could say this guy has so much training, or maybe he just had good talent. Like, it's impossible to tell. It's like the nature versus nurture argument. But as for distractions, oftentimes Jedi get distracted, and I think this, again, ties back to size matters not only in your mind, it matters, or whatever Yoda said. I don't remember the specific words. But if you're distracted, you're not focusing, and you can't, like, force yourself to believe. You can't force yourself to, I don't know, like, make the size not matter, I guess. And you're going to be distracted, then you're not going to be able to use the forces effectively. Then there's fatigue, and I mean, if size doesn't matter, one thing that does matter is fatigue. And I think that this is where size and distance might matter the most, because maybe you can use the force, let's say, go back to that sun example. Maybe if you believe hard enough, you can throw a sun around at almost the speed of light. But maybe it's also very fatiguing when you do that. So, for example, you lift an X-Wing, you're going to get really tired. You lift a giant pillar, like Yoda did in the Battle of Geonosis, and you're going to get super tired. Fatigue seems to accompany most powerful uses of the Force, and I think that just makes sense. So it's totally possible that Jedi can do like incredible things, but when they do those, their like endurance level goes down accordingly. And therefore, even if they can, they might not want to. So that's pretty much most of the costs and limitations that I think we know about or can theorize on. If you know of any more, one thing I do want to touch on before I close here is other powers like Force Lightning and Tudominus, and even the mental-based ones. The mental-based ones are, they're kind of different. I don't know. They seem to, like, they don't really apply to the same rules. Like, does size matter with what you can sense? I mean, sure, you could say you can sense something even more deeply or an even wider range, but I don't know. I feel like maybe those have different rules for power levels, and those I don't really know. It's a bit more vague on what you can do mentally with the Force, because it doesn't have like a clear physical representation in the movies. Maybe if they wrote more books from like a first-person point of view, you would get a better understanding of it. But even then, they kind of generalize, say, "Oh, I had a feeling," like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what feeling it is though, writer. which is good. I mean, I don't really want to know everything about Star Wars. It's great to have some mystery. It's great to have some stuff to theorize about. Um, so yeah, those don't really matter. But stuff like force lightning, size matters. Like, does size, or what is the phrasing? Size matters not. Transitioning that from lifting something with telekinesis to force lightning, does that mean you could theoretically shoot a like an extremely powerful blast of lightning that could take out like an entire fleet? Uh, like sure. I mean, is that like more indicative of your indicative? Is that a word I used right? I have no idea. Is that because of your like power, like your talent and your training, or is that just because you like with telekinesis, just because you um think that you can do it and therefore you can? I don't know. I think it's a lot like that, but then again, I don't know. And then as for distance, does distance matter? Could you like shoot force lightning out of a nearby object or out of a very far away object, like out of a random water bottle on a distant planet? I don't know. I don't think so. One thing though about force lightning is maybe you just need direct line of sight and you can shoot any distance. I don't know what the diminish is on that. Um, I mean, it seems like force lightning is um, I mean, it seems like people don't limit their force lightning ranges very much. Um, and I mean, I'm sure like if you blast at another planet, you're gonna miss. If you blast at some guy even across the football field, they have time to dodge it. So maybe distance doesn't matter in terms of power level and the speed of your blast or whatever, but it matters in reaction time and your precision for your accuracy, basically. As for true diminish, opposite of that, like could you block a sun? Like if you get thrown into a sun, can you survive with true diminish? I don't think so. But again, it could be you could survive for a little bit, but you would run out of fatigue in about 10 seconds, and therefore it wouldn't really matter. Or maybe it's just you don't believe you can survive, and so you don't survive. As for augmentation, it's the same thing. Um, just extrapolating those things that we've heard about telekinesis and things that have been demonstrated through telekinesis and putting that on other force powers is pretty interesting. But that's pretty much all I have to say about force powers and their limits. Leave your thoughts about all that in the comments or in the chat. And I will see you in the next segment. And that segment is the best land vehicle in Star Wars. So quick, let me summarize. This includes things like walkers, as you see on the screen. It includes things like hover tanks, wheeled vehicles, anything that goes on the land. And this is going to be my top 5. And leave your top 5 in the chat or in the comments. I'd love to hear and discuss why you like those things. I love asking why, especially when it comes to opinions. Even though the question is, I don't know, I kind of felt like it. Or not the question, the answer. But even so, oftentimes it's like, I don't know, I just think it looks cool. Or it's just got like a lot of cool features that I would like. For example, like, I don't know why I said for example. I didn't really have an example. Um, I do that a lot while live streaming. But I'm just gonna hard turn into top 5. Going with the number 5 choice is the Hailfire droid. This is like I don't know if you see it very often throughout the Clone Wars, maybe once or twice. I can't think of any examples, but in Attack of the Clones, you see it on Geonosis. It's that thing with like 2 wheels. I have one in Lego right here, but I don't have a camera, so I can't really show you. It's this thing on 2 wheels, and it's got like missile racks above it. Super cool if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up. They're very cool. I look like each missile can destroy like a entire ATTE, and they have like 16 on each rack. They have 2 racks. I think it's 16. I haven't counted in a while. Yeah, and the Lego versions are always super cool. I don't know. They just look super cool, interesting. They're very fast, and as I said, they've got a lot of firepower. Like potentially 16 ATTEs taken out per Hailfire droid. That's pretty cool. But I mean, again, we don't really see that much of them. Then there's I don't know, maybe their missiles are like super expensive to produce or something. I don't know. Sometimes the economics of Star Wars is interesting. Another one, my 4th choice is the AT-AT, And this one, I believe I mostly chose it because it's just kind of a classic. I wrote this list yesterday, so some of my reasons are some of my reasons aren't quite as clear, and also I guess my opinions change. They fluctuate throughout the week, throughout the years, throughout the days. So AT-AT, I think I'd probably currently put below Hellfire Droid, but oh well. Um, it's a classic thing. It's tall, it's menacing. It doesn't quite have the best design logically, but from a movie, it's awesome. The front cannons, the way the head turns, um, the name AT-AT, which is the name of it, not the other one. Anyways, AT-AT, classic choice. I like it. It looks cool. And the AT-M6, I also like this one, and that's the first order version. The reason I didn't put it on instead of the AT-AT is one, the AT-AT is just the classic one. That's most of the reason I chose it, anyways. So putting on a not classic version would kind of ruin that. But also, basically, the only reason I like the AT-M6s is because they show up in The Last Jedi and they have this cool scene where there's like this orange sunset behind them, and one of them steps forward super menacingly and they start shooting at Luke. It's a cool scene, but if the AT-AT could fulfill that scene pretty much just as well. I mean, not quite, but like it's just that the scene is cool, not so much that the AT-M6 is cool. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. As for my third choice on the list, the third of the top three is the ATTE. This is it's for those of you who don't know, it's the six-legged one in the Clone Wars. I referenced it earlier with the Hailfire droids. They're a lot lower to the ground. They've got one giant cannon on top with a turret. I don't have the Lego version of this one, but I have seen it, and it's pretty cool. I like this one. I don't know why I'm so fixated on the Lego versions of these things. But I don't know. Lego does a good job with land vehicles, I think. I think the reason I fixate on it is because most of the Star Wars Legos, at least from what I've seen, are like super small to scale, I guess. Like you see a starship. Okay, the Jedi Starfighters are pretty good. TIE Fighters are usually pretty good. But like if you were to fill out your collection of Star Wars stuff and have like an actual battle, it would cost like $1,000 for just like a small battle. And then you would, if you were to scale the Death Star up, it would be like, it would take up like an entire room. It's because Star Wars covers so many different planets, like the immensity of it can't really be translated into Legos without like mini version Legos or one stud is a person Lego like size. You'd have to change the scale. But when it comes to land vehicles, you can totally make whatever speeder bikes, General Grievous's bike, Hailfire droids, ATTEs, even the bigger ones like AT-M6s, AT-ATs. Those might be a bit small, but I mean, if you're willing to pay a bit more, they might make a bigger model. I mean, I don't know if there is. For the reasons I've laid out earlier, I don't really buy that many Star Wars Legos, but naturally, I like Star Wars, I like Legos. People get me Star Wars Legos, and I get some sometimes too. But that's my rant about Legos over. I don't know if you can call it a rant. Leave your classification of whatever you call that in the comments. And sorry for those of you who are watching the whatever you call it, the video. I forgot to hit record and am recording this late. But basically, in a recap, what I said is top 5 for the best land vehicles in Star Wars is the Hailfire droid, the AT-AT, ATTE, and Lego Star Wars is cool. But moving on to the second choice, and thanks for sticking through that quick explanation, those of you who are watching live, is the AAT. And this is, I believe, I probably should have double checked, but oh well. The AAT, I'm pretty sure, is the Separatist tank that you see in Episode 1 throughout the Clone Wars. I don't think you see it in Episode 2 or 3. But I mean, they just have a cool design. It's like a semicircle with like giant tank and there's a cannon on top. I don't know. It's those ones that are like blue and gray in the Clone Wars, but like tan and the Phantom Menace. I don't know. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. They're pretty cool. I don't know what I like about them. They just look cool, I guess. Hover technology is interesting. I like large cannons on the front and turrets. Those are cool. Um, I don't know. They just seem like a cool ship, or not ship, like a cool tank to be in. So the AAT is a great thing. Also, the name is kind of cool. The Armored Assault Tank. I'm pretty sure that's the like what the letters mean. But anyways, AAT is pretty cool. Um, Now I'm on to the number one, my favorite land vehicle in Star Wars. Um, and for those of you who have seen my Mandalorian reviews, you probably guessed it already. It's the speeder bikes. Um, Speeder bikes are just super cool. I love how fast they move. I love that scene in episode 2 with Duel of the Fates and Anakin zooming along to find Shmi with a sunset. I don't know. That scene is probably the reason I like speeder bikes. But it's constantly reinforced every time I see them. Maybe not every time, but most times I see them that speeder bikes are awesome. You get that scene in chapter 12 of The Mandalorian with the speeder bikes chasing down Grief Karga and Cara Dune and their like tank thing. You have the song Speeder Bikes again in The Mandalorian, chapter 5. You have the scene in chapter 10 where like Mando's speeder bike gets tripped and he like flies off. Like just seeing speeder bikes is so cool because of how fast they move. It's like a motorcycle, but it's faster and it's more Star Wars like. So I don't know. They're just super awesome, super smooth. And then of course, not just times in the Mandalorian, but throughout all of Star Wars, every time you see speeder bikes, I don't know. It's just cool. It's hard to explain why you like something. For example, I can't explain why I like the color green. It's just a cool color. It kind of similar to that. I can't really explain that well why I like speeder bikes beyond that they go fast and like you're riding on top of one like a motorcycle. But why is it cool that you go fast and ride on top of things like a motorcycle? Like I don't know. It's just cool. Um, so that's pretty much all I have for this segment. Um, and pretty much since that's the last segment, that means that's pretty much all I have for this stream. So I guess thanks for watching. I'm gonna do a quick recap. We covered Solo, a Star Wars story. I'd say it's a fun movie. We didn't really need it, but I'm glad we got it. It's a fun movie, but not a great movie. Then we covered how powerful is the Force, and why don't the Jedi use it more often. And there's a lot of reasons. I think I don't know. Let me just go through my main points. I dropped my paper. Let me grab that. The Force has a wide variety of powers. Um, Hang on, I completely forgot a part of this. Um, I'll cover that other times. It's got a wide variety of powers, and it's got like limitations and costs to it, such as like emotions mattering, possibly the amount of life nearby you. Like if you're on like Exegol or a planet with like not even bugs, then you're not gonna have theoretically. Well, no, because you're there. You're not gonna have as powerful of a force if you're on a planet like. That doesn't make sense though. See, this is where there's a problem is because I can't go through every single time that force has been used and be like, all right, let me write down how much power that was and divide it by their talent and divide it by their training, and that's how much is based on this circumstance, and that number is different than this other time where they were like in Dagobah. I can't actually research it, and even if like I could do some research, just by watching through everything carefully and noting down specific things, but I don't really have time to do that. So, I don't know. But there's the main costs and limitations are like force walls and force cloaks blocking Jedi. You can distract Jedi so that they can't focus and they drop whatever they're holding or can't choke you or whatever. Then there's also fatigue, which seems to often accompany large uses of the Force. And then there's obviously your talent and your training seems to matter at least somewhat. Then there's the last segment I covered, the best land vehicle. is the Hailfire droid. It's my 5th pick. AT-AT, 4th pick. 3rd pick is the AT-TE. And 2nd place is AAT. And my favorite land vehicle of all time is speeder bikes. So that's the stream, guys. Thanks for watching. If you want to very quickly, leave your answer to the question of the stream, or if you want to just, when I get the other videos uploaded, the, what are they called? I guess the 3 videos I upload after the stream. If you want to leave the answer in the comments, I guess, on there, you can do that too. Or you could just put it in the chat. There is some delay, so be wary of that. But I'm pretty sure that's all I have for this stream. So with that, thanks for watching, and goodbye.